I know that you were able to tour a little bit or have been able to tour, so you haven't been totally off the road. So what's keeping you busy at the moment besides those great YouTube videos? That Vandenberg one was great.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, our band, the Spasmatics out here, has been playing. We were shut down completely last April and May of 2020. But then in June, we started, finding places that we could do a show at with like, a 25% capacity. So, the money was low and the capacity was low, but we were able to play. So, in fact, the very first thing we did was a live stream. Actually, it was in May, at the end of May. So we went a little over 40 days without a show. And that was probably the longest since I've been playing guitar that I went without playing a live show, 40 days in a row. I've never done that in my life. So our band, we hadn't played a single show in 40 days. And we were expecting to have a pretty rough show, but it actually went real smooth. We were kind of laughing that we were all ready for a bunch of mistakes and stuff, but it was good. So anyways, then just shows started popping up, one, maybe 2 or 3 a month. So, and then it got kind of to where we almost had most of our Fridays and Saturdays. So that's like 8 shows a month. And it's all, it's slowly getting bigger, even though they've now opened Texas allegedly, 100% where you're allowed to stay open. Most of the businesses are still keeping it limited. The clubs are playing at are still limiting, and they're doing that on their own because they're getting calls from customers that are worried about this stuff. So they're just easing their way back into it. So, but I have a lot of friends in California who've played 0 shows in the past year.
Yeah.
We've played like 50 shows or 60 probably since COVID started. So we're doing really well out here. We're lucky.
And then also, as I mentioned, we've seen you do some great videos where you're playing some of your old favorite songs and putting them up on YouTube. Is that more of a practice exercise for you?
No, it's just fun. I practice. I just, late at night, I'll just put my guitar and just jam along with whatever. I mean, I always play. But it all started, well, for me, it first started by the first few months of COVID, and there was nothing going on. We were literally locked in the house. You're allowed to go to the store and get food, and that was pretty much it.
Right.
So for those 2 months, I went through like a depression at first. Obviously, you go through this thing where you're like, the world's coming to an end. This sucks. We're all gonna die. And then I went through this, and after I went through the depression, I said, okay, I'm gonna start just filming myself. First thing I did was just play along with some songs just for fun of it. And that was, what's funny is I was doing almost one a day for a while. And next thing you know, all these people are asking me, hey, can you record on this? Can you record on that? And I thought, okay, well, and the truth is, in the 80s and 90s, I was always the guy in the band that had the studio. I was always, back in the day, in the 80s, I got my 4-track. And I did all the band demos. And then I got the 8-track and I did all the band demos. And then I got the 16-track ADAT and I did all the band demos. And I was the band demo guy for years and years. And finally, when I moved to Austin in 2007, I left my studio gear in LA and I go, we're booked 250 shows a year. I'll do the live stuff and not do any recording. Not that I didn't like doing it, but I guess I felt kind of like a little bit tired of being the only guy that always had to buy all the studio gear and do everything while everyone else in the bands I played with just got to use my gear, so I finally want to be like the guy that I just play guitar now. So, but the bummer about that was over the past 10 years, I haven't kept up on the studio stuff. I never really went to digital, or I should say, I never went to computer. The last thing I had was ADAT, 16-track ADAT, which is still tape.
Yeah.
And, so it took me a while to get, I got Pro Tools 10 or 12 years ago, and I used it a little bit when I was in Austin. And then I really just did live music for the past 10, 12 years. And so because of this COVID and everyone being locked at home, people started wanting to record more. So I had to go out and get Logic Pro and learn how to use it. So I was kind of a beginner again. I had experience, but I was a beginner in the computer world of recording. So it was a little strange, just the concept of like a virtual signal path. I used to see wires, plugs this into that, bus this there. And so it took me a little while to get used to this virtual signal path. And so Michael T. Ross from Lita Ford and from the Rating the Rock Vault, he was the person, actually this girl, Kathy Katie. Hey, Kathy. She's the one who's a mutual friend of ours. And me and Mike know each other, but we really hadn't other than Facebook, hadn't really spoken in like 10 years. And she suggested that we get together and do the Vandenberg Burning Heart song. It was Kathy Katie's idea. And so I called up Mike and I said, hey, let's do this song. And so he already was working with Phil Verone a lot from Saigon Kick. They had been doing a lot of recording. Yeah. And in fact, he had just started doing these videos, Mike and them. And Phil was doing the video editing. And then a bass player named Alex Rodriguez, they were like kind of the trio of guys that were putting stuff together. And so because of Kathy, we did Burning Heart. And then I asked them, I said, hey, what do you guys think of getting Jeff Scott Soto to sing on it? Because I just knew his voice. Bandmate. Yeah, I just knew he was going to kill that song. I mean, I couldn't think of anybody who would make it sound better than him. And so, of course, when I called Jeff, he was completely busy. He was doing 2 records at the same time. I could tell he was in the middle of recording when I called him, and I could hear the hoarseness in his voice, like that he's been singing for 3 or 4 days. And then I'm about to ask him if he wants to sing for free on his song. So it was kind of like, oh no. And luckily I mentioned the song Burning Heart, and he says, oh, that's my favorite Vandenberg song. So I kind of knew that I had a shot, I said, hey, well, we're going to do it for fun. You want to sing on it? And he said, well, give me some time. So we sent him out the track, and it only took him about a week to get around to doing it. So I knew it could have taken weeks because he was really busy, and you're doing session work all day long for your living, and then to do something for free, you try to save your voice at some point.
Well, you're in that same kind of boat that not every single thing that you've done is online by any stretch of the imagination. It's not like when you look up Brian Young, hey, he's playing on this today, this tomorrow, and this. You've kind of been under the radar, but always busy. You like, if we go back to when you were in Roth's band, you were flying out on off nights and playing other gigs, which blows my mind. You're this. I got
that. I think Ray Luzier was a big instigator in that style for me, because back when when Ray Luzier was playing with Dave for a few years before I was, and I knew Ray really well, and they'd go on tour, and then I'd see Ray on his day off doing a drum clinic or doing a gig, and I remember thinking to myself, I thought when you landed one of those gigs, that's your gig, and when you're home, and you don't have to work on your days off. So I like that work ethic of where if I'm home and there's a gig, I'll do it. So I just took, kind of copied that work ethic, and we, in fact, Ray and I did a lot of the gigs together because we were both with Dave, so we both had the same days off. So we were able to come home and do other gigs. And we actually did a thing where we did like a Thursday with Dave, a Friday with the cover band, Saturday with Dave, Sunday with the cover band, a Monday with Dave. And it was fun, to be that busy, and it doesn't give you time to get bored, obviously, and you just do it. Sometimes you look at the calendar and you see this schedule ahead of you and you're thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? It just looks impossible. And then when you do it, I found that you just look at the next gig. Don't look at 30 gigs in a row. Just go, okay, all I got to do is get from here to the airport. Okay, I can do that. Then I get there to the gig, and then I get back home. Okay. So if you chop it into little pieces, it's not that big of a deal. One of the craziest ones I ever did was when I was still with the Atomic Punks. Mm-hmm. We were playing at a place in Santa Monica. I think it was called 14 Below. It was a small club in Santa Monica on 14th Street, I guess. And we were playing the next day at the Pepsi Center in Colorado, the Mile High Stadium.
Yeah.
We had a gig at the Mile High Stadium playing during the hockey game, we were playing at 11 in the morning in Denver. And I remember being on stage at midnight in Santa Monica, thinking to myself, in less than 12 hours, I'm going to be playing a show in Denver, Colorado. And that's one of those, something's going to go wrong. And sure enough, we, after the gig, basically went home, took a shower, drove to the airport, got in the plane, flew, got in the car, drove, the gear's there, the rental gear, tune our stuff up, and next thing you know, we're playing, it all worked. It was just one of those things where it seems like crazy, but because it's that thought of in 12 hours from now and being, another state playing another show. Anyway, so
every now and then you'll see a documentary like the band Fozzy with Chris Jericho, where they played 3 shows in the same day in 3 different time zones. Or you think of Def Leppard.
Def Leppard, the 3 continents. Yeah, that was
exactly.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's pure insanity. That's their problem. That's not my problem. But Did you always have that work ethic and that hustle? I think I know the answer because you were a cover band guy that also gave guitar lessons and then eventually became, a star in your own right.
Yeah, I always my thing was saying yes to every gig because but I had a day job, back in the day, and I hated it. And I remember I started playing with this top 40 band, and it was for $50 a night, and I played 5 45-minute sets for $50, which is really chump change now, but at the time I was, it's $250 a week. I was paying my bills. I was living on that salary, on that money. But I really hated it because we were playing the same stuff over and over. And it was, I was 21 years old and I wanted to be in a real original rock band. And I remember playing Sweet Home Alabama for the 1000th time going. And then I actually quit the band and got a job back at my old day job place, the record place that I worked at. And I remember after a month thinking, what was I thinking? This is terrible. So after that, I always said, I don't care what song I'm playing, the worst gig ever is better than a day job. So I never, ever wished my way out of any gig, no matter how crappy it was after that.
What was the turning point in terms of your career? Was it Bo Nasty?
Well, I don't think there was ever a turning point in my career because I really, unlike some people who go from playing in a bar band when they're 20 to being in a signed band when they're 22 and famous and buying mansions. my ride is every step of the way. Like, so
yeah.
I never really jumped any major, even so I guess getting a record deal was a big thing at the time. But if I look back on, what I was doing, like it turned out to be just another gig. And in the end, I really made no more money than I made doing cover gigs because we got a lump sum, but it was then, you get nothing for a year and then you get some royalties. So it was nice to get a $10,000 check, at one time, like, whoa, this is big money, when I was used to making $50 a night. But then when you spread it over living off it for the whole year, it really turned out to be about $50 a night. So it didn't really, it wasn't like my ship came in or anything like that. So, and then I wasn't really happy in that band. And I actually left that band to play with my brother's band that was doing original music, but more wild and wacky stuff. So, and then even with the Dave gig, that was another pretty big step. But at the time, I was really happy with what I was doing. I was teaching on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, playing with the Perfect World on Thursday, doing a disco thing or whatever. And then I was doing the Atomic Punks on Fridays and Saturdays. So my week was full. My days were, I surfed every day. And so I could surf every morning and still go and play gigs. So my life was, I look at it, how much better does it get? I surf every day and I'm playing music for a living. I got no complaints. So when the Dave gig came along, it was really awesome. But the guys in the Atomic Punks didn't want me to do the Dave gig. They actually offered to pay me more money to turn down David Lee Roth. So I thought about it. I go, well, there's no way I'm going to turn down Dave, but at least if I don't, the funny thing was I thought, well, if I audition and don't get the gig now, I can just say I turned it down and get a raise. So, so it was a little scary because I had to give up a lot, the teaching and all these things. I knew I was going to lose all my students. And so if the Dave thing only lasted 3 months and ended, I was going to be back scraping for work again.
Yeah. So
it was like, even though it was kind of like a dream come true kind of thing, it wasn't anything to where I was going, oh, I'm set, for the rest of my life. I knew that this guy could go back to Van Halen any day. I was just hoping it lasted 6 months, and then turned out to be 6 years. Yeah. In fact, when he hired me, it was originally for 2 shows. So when I got the call to play with Dave, it was for 2 festivals, and that was all that was asked. Can you play these 2 festivals with David Lee Roth? I said, sure. And then about a month later, I get a call. We're going to tour with Sammy Hagar for the whole summer. So, then that was the end of my surfing. I'm now on tour all the time. So, see what I mean? You got to give up something. So I loved being on the road. It was great, but I did miss. There was parts of my life that were like, now I'm sitting in hotel rooms all day instead of going to the beach. So, and that can get pretty boring.
Sure.
But so, I never really looked at. I guess I was always realistic about things. I always knew that these are just really good jobs. And you're not going to turn into some rock god or something. A lot of people think that something happens when you get in a famous band and suddenly you're some magical being. It's like, I just look at it like, this is a good job and I hope it lasts for a while. and then it lasted 6 years.
Well, with that 6 years, I've seen you live by default more times than I've seen most musicians, because that 04, 05, 06, 07 period, you guys like just did not stop touring. It's like I live on Long Island, New York. They're playing. New York City, they're playing. One time I was in Japan and I saw you guys live there.
You saw us, which city?
That was in Tokyo, Shibuya, Kokaido.
Yeah, that was our last. I think that was our last gig in Japan. Wow, that's cool.
My favorite part of that show was because the first time that you see Roth live, it's like, this is the best show I've ever seen. And then the second time you're like, that's the same exact show I saw, but this is still amazing. And then the third time, it's kind of like that thing. So when he's talking in Spanish live in Japan, that just cracked me up, because I think he was used to that part of the show.
Yeah.
But I really loved your version of the band. Most of the times I saw it was the 2 guitar thing with you and Toshi.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't for the Sammy tour. It was a 1 guitar thing. But I was trying to figure this out. You are the longest tenured musician he played with.
Other than Ed, yeah. I thought about that too. It's kind of funny that of all the different guitar players that play with Dave, I played with him longer than anybody besides Eddie Van Halen, which is kind of cool. I think, it was just the right time. And also, Dave's one of those guys who he kind of sticks with what he knows. And as long as you don't do anything stupid, it's like, and that's really what it boils down to. It's like, he can get irritated real easily, and you just got to learn how to be around him. And it's pretty easy to do. And of course, and he'll still have his moods here and there.
Sure.
But I mean, in the 6 years of the hundreds of explosions I heard with him, I was only the target about 2 or 3 times. It was usually somebody that messed up, or sometimes it was just everybody at once. But as far as me being singled out and being like the guy that was getting yelled at, it only happened once or twice. And I just let it bounce off me. That's another thing. You just go, oh, Dave's, he's upset. He's going to yell. He's got to blow off steam, and then everything's gonna be fine. So, it thickens your skin, and you learn it. So I think some people, and also that really, early on, most people within the first few months, they find out if they're right for that gig or not.
Sure.
I mean, I saw so many Monitor guys come and go in that first tour that we finally just started calling them by numbers. We're like, okay, this is number 5. and what's funny is the guy that we called number 5 ended up staying around for 5 years. So forever he was named number 5. His name's actually Doug Short. And he's a great, hey Doug. Yeah. He's a great tech, and he's awesome, and we loved him. But it was funny because 4 guys that came and went like literally a week at a time. Every week, a guy's here, they're gone. And I watched them blow it too. I mean, I remember telling one of the guys, I remember exactly the conversation. I said, listen, I go, what's happening is these guys aren't watching Dave. They're looking at the board. And Dave's looking, they're trying to get their attention, and they're not looking. So I said, you got to keep your eye on Dave all the time. And he goes, well, what if there's a problem on the board? I said, keep your eye on Dave. He goes, well, what if there's something spills? I go, keep your eye on Dave. He goes, what if the board's on fire? I go, keep your eye on Dave. Well, 2 days later, he was fired because he didn't keep his eye on Dave. I told him, I go, if the board's on fire, keep your eye on Dave. And he just couldn't comprehend that. The other thing that number 5 was good at was when Dave would be like pointing, his microphone and do this. Yeah. And then the monitor guy would, hit it up a dB. Then Dave doesn't notice. Another dB. 5 times later, it's finally getting somewhere. Number 5, when Dave goes like this, Dave he just he just maxed it out, man, right away. And then Dave's like, yeah. So that was the guy that okay, he gets it. When Dave says, I want it louder, you got to make a big enough move to where he really hears it get louder, or he thinks you're not doing anything. So that was the thing with Fiverr. He knew the drill.
Yeah. When I emphasize your tenure, you were there through the bluegrass experiment. In fact, I saw you were on the Craig Ferguson show playing with the band for that.
Oh, I did a bunch of the TV shows. Yeah, we did
CNBC,
The View,
yeah,
A&E, Breakfast with the Arts. Yeah, the only one I missed was the Conan O'Brien show. And the reason I missed that was because we were also playing a gig in New York City. And Dave was going to do the Conan show, which is filmed at like 4 or 5 o'clock. Yeah. And then with the bluegrass band, and then head straight over to the gig. Yeah. And so, and I just felt like I didn't want the stress of having to, because I knew that if I did the Conan show, the whole time I'd be thinking, oh, the gig's coming up and I got to be rushed over there. So I skipped that one just so I could go with a sound check and be with the band and be ready to go when Dave walked in. So I'm kind of bummed out now. I look back, I should have just done the Conan show, because that's a pretty cool TV show, you know, to put on your roster of.
Plenty of those things. You were there for the radio show. I remember you were there on the morning K-Rock syndicated show, playing in and out of commercials.
I was Paul Schaefer.
Exactly.
That's what they called me there. I play out of the commercial, play back into the show.
Yeah, you were doing that, and you were playing over techno. So we saw a lot of diversity in terms of what you could play and improvise and all that. Even playing under conversations, which was very unique.
Yeah, Dave called it track blasting. And what the deal was this: Dave took he goes to the CD store back then. I used to see him do it. He'd go to the store and he'd come home with like 20 CDs. Yeah. And then he would listen to them, and then he would pick out his favorite songs and have his guy make him these CDs of just the songs he liked. You know, like, so he'd take 20 CDs and get it down to 3 CDs of the greatest hits. And he had hundreds of his greatest hits CDs. And then what he did with those before the radio show, he took cool sections of a song, a little funky jam or whatever, without singing, and he would have these guys loop that for like 10 minutes. So they were just like a musical loop that lasted 10 minutes long, and he made hundreds of those. Animal would carry 2 big silver briefcases. Animal,
also on the show, the security guard. Yes.
Yeah. The giant Animal would carry these cases full of these CDs, and all they were just grooves and grooves and grooves of different. Right. And they were all genres, different keys. In fact, some of them weren't tuned to A440. So a few of them, like, I couldn't play along with them because I'd be out of tune sounding. They were between A and A flat somewhere. Yeah. But most of them were fine. And so he wouldn't let me know what's going to happen. Like, they would just he would just play track number 3. And then they'd be coming out of the commercial and the music comes on. I got to find the key and start soloing, you know? And he liked a certain style, you know, he liked me to keep it kind of bluesy, funky. Yeah. You know, there was a thing that, like, so he didn't really want me to go wild or anything, but it was definitely a neat experience. Yeah, that show.
Yeah, so I'm just showering you with praise here because I saw you live that many times. It was always great, and in my opinion, that's the last great. Although I saw the Vegas shows and all that, I thought it was the last great Roth band in terms of the set list, that you were able to go between a couple of deep cuts and the solo material and the Van Halen hits, and then you get a DOA and all that. It was maybe the last tour that happened.
Well, to me, the 2002 tour was my favorite set list. And it was the only one that I was the only guitar player on, which I liked that because it was like, there's a thing with Van Halen that you want that sound. When we added the second guitar, we had to really work to try to make it sound right with 2 guitars because it's just not supposed to be. Right. So, and the 2002 set list was definitely the heaviest set list. I mean, that was the set list that I'm the One, DOA, Atomic Punk, all this stuff. And then every year, Atomic Punk would leave and Just Gigolo would come in. And then you know, DOA would go away, and some of the lighter tunes. I can't remember the California Girls. So it was fun, but I really enjoyed the heavy stuff the best because that was like, to me, that's like the prime Van Halen, the first 2 records. You know, we were playing most of the first 2 records and then a bunch of other stuff. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and those set lists, the videos, a lot of people ask me, hey, you know, what's your favorite stuff from this era of Dave? And I always go to this Carson Daly performance, which you were on, where you do Mean Street.
Mean Streets, and we did Panama too. I don't know if it showed it though.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm not sure if that's online, but the classic moment is you can see that you, and I think it was James Lomenzo playing bass on that tour.
Yes.
You can see that clearly you and James have to get out of the way at this point, because otherwise you're going to get kicked in the face during the first spin kick and all that.
We knew when to run. Hey, if you watch any videos of us from that tour, or pretty much any tour, and watch it when it gets to jump, when it gets that middle keyboard section where Dave starts spinning that bar, we all run. We all just go. I go behind my amp. My routine was my tech would have a can of Budweiser, a nice cold can of Budweiser, and then right when I get around the speakers, he'd pop it and I would down the whole thing because it's the end of the show, so I could down. My thing was to try to drink the whole beer before he finished that part and run back out. That's a little secret no one knew about. I was drinking a beer.
Wow. Wow. So there was rumors, when you're a fan and you go to concerts and you're trying to get that front space and you kind of have to wait for a while because you're like, you want to be in the front. So then you have to make small talk with all the other people that are going. And there's always one or two guys that are quote unquote insiders and they know everything that's going to happen. And there's one or two guys that are going, oh yeah, well, I heard that Brian was asked to do this residency, but he couldn't do it due to scheduling reasons, that kind of thing.
That's kind of true. That you talking about the Vegas residency?
Yeah, from last year. My wife and I, that was our second to last concerts before COVID.
Well, I can tell you exactly what happened. I got a phone call. Let me try to remember who this was now. Let me think. It was Brett Tuggle. And, he was with Fleetwood Mac for a long time, but he was with Dave back in the day. And he mentioned that there was going to be this was in 2019. Was residency in 2020? I can't, I'm getting lost
early
now.
2020.
Yeah. So it was about the middle of 2019. So it was like 8 months before the residency thing happened. He just said that they were going to be doing this residency with Dave in Vegas, and they were working with guys, still kind of checking out guys, and was I interested in doing it. And it wasn't like an offer, but it was more like a just checking to see what. And we talked a little bit. Yeah. And the truth is that my 2020 calendar was booked solid, and it was, and I was happy with what I was doing. Once again, I come home almost every night, and I've toured and I like touring. And it's, of course, I'd always would do it if the money's right and it's the right gig. But when I can make, a good living and be able to stay home, I prefer that right now.
Sure.
I mean, I just got married, so I don't want to leave my girl. And so I thought about it, but we talked a little bit about it, and it just turned out that it was better because basically I was going to have to ask for a big pile of money to uproot myself, because I knew I was going to be stuck in Vegas, sitting in hotel rooms, doing nothing, waiting for a show every day and I hate that. Here's how bad I hate sitting in hotel rooms. Okay. We'll play 2 nights. Okay. I live 3 hours from Houston. It's a 3-hour drive to Houston. If we play 2 nights in a row in Houston, I will drive home after the show and then drive back to Houston the next day.
Wow.
So that means I will play in Houston, be done at 1 a.m, drive home, get home at 4 a.m, sleep in my bed, wake up at noon, be at home till 4, and then get on the road and drive back to Houston. That's how much I hate sitting in a hotel room, because what happens in the hotel room is you get kicked out at noon. Then I got 8 hours sitting in my car, driving around Houston, going to the bookstore. And when you're trying to kill 8 hours or something in a town, and that you've been to 1,000 times, I've played in Houston twice a month for 13 years, and you just run out of stuff to do, and you're just sitting there, and I just can't stand it. I'd rather be driving to and from and do something than to sit around. I used to park my car, and I can't even go to a movie because I got guitars in my car. I got stuff, so I can't go to a movie because I got a carload of gear. So it's like I can't just sit there and park my car and go to a movie, especially if it's hot out in my car. So I have to keep my car running all day too, because it's 100 degrees out. My guitars are in the car, so I can't just park and sit there and sweat for 5 hours. So I'm sitting there parked with my car running, doing my little Japanese lessons on my phone. It's terrible. So that
was my next question. Actually, I was going to say, what is the car hobby? Because you're a productive, thoughtful kind of person, and you just answer it: Japanese lessons.
Yeah. That's one of. And then when I'm driving, though, it's funny. I don't do that my lessons so much when I'm driving. I try. They have ones that you can just listen to, but they're not my favorite ones.
Pimsleur, I think that is Pimsleur or Berlitz.
No, it's called Japanese Pod 101. It's a thing I'm signed up for, where they do a lesson, where they do a dialogue, but their dialogue, it's like they do it kind of slow, and it's a long dialogue, and you only learn 3 words. It's one of those. It's not my. I enjoy Duolingo, which you have to sit there with your phone to do. And I got a lot of books too, so those are things I can't do while I'm driving. So the other thing I used to do when I was driving, this is bad. About 10 years ago, I've been playing chess since the early 90s. I got all hooked on chess, and I joined a online chess.com, around 2009, and I joined all these chess tournaments. They're like these online tournaments where you can get 50 games going, and you just make one move a day. You make a move, you go all your games, make a move, then the next day you come back and see what moves were made against you. So what I would got to a point where I'd be on stage. I'm up there playing on stage, and I'm just picturing the chess position I'm in right now, and I'm all stressing over some chess move, and then I'll be in my car driving, looking at my chessboard, coming home at 3 a.m. And I don't do that anymore. But I never got close to getting in a wreck or anything. But it was I was pretty hooked. I was pretty addicted to that thing for a while.
Is there a secret heavy metal chess community? I know that there is a hip hop one. We go to the metal one. I think Ingve is a chess guy.
Really? I didn't know that.
Well, he referred to one time tennis as being chess meets boxing. I think he once called it.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he plays it though.
Got it.
Yeah.
But do you have other musicians that you play with, or you don't have to name names, or is your
no,
personal life separate?
It's chess.com. You just play random. I don't know who these people are. There's all over the world. I mean, I play people all. It's just people. It's a worldwide chess website. It's probably the number one. If you chess.com, obviously they got that one first. There's thousands and thousands of people on it, and also there's international masters and grandmasters on it who go under weird little names, so you kind of find out who they are. I've never played any of those guys, but there's been people who've been lucky enough to get games against real, world champ type people. So it's pretty cool.
Cool. Do you got time for 3 quick questions and then you're a free man, Brian?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, first one, because you've always been mysterious. Like, we know, hey, he's on stage, he delivers the goods, he's good, he smiles, he's pleasant, but we don't know much about you. So do you have a favorite band of all time?
Of course. I can name my 2 favorite bands of all time. They're the first. It started with the Beatles, and then the next, and then it was Led Zeppelin. I mean, I was a Beatles fan since before I could walk. My dad played Beatles all the time. He loved the Beatles. So I was totally into the Beatles. Hard Day's Night, that whole Mop Top era was my favorite. And then of course I loved Kiss. Is why I started playing guitar. So they're still one of my favorites. When I was 12 years old, I got into Kiss, saw that picture of Ace Frehley with the smoking guitar. I go, that's what I want to do. And then, but Led Zeppelin would be, if I had to pick one all-time favorite, Zeppelin, they've been my favorite band since I was in 9th grade.
TV show, is there a favorite TV show of the moment?
I got a million. Once again, we'll go back to those old shows. I mean, I grew up on, Get Smart, I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched, all that stuff. I love Andy Griffith Show. I love all those good old shows. And then I for newer shows, I liked, Seinfeld, and I got into Cheers for a while, and Married with Children, of course, but I think it's, kind of trashy. But
it holds up. Married with Children still holds up all these years later.
I love Family Guy as far as just irreverent comedy that it's probably one of the only shows that really makes me actually laugh out loud. I usually think things are funny, but I'm not cracking up. But Family Guy, there's stuff makes me crack up. But as far as I would say what I think is like one of the best shows, but I'm rewatching it now. I watched the whole thing one time through about a few years back, and now we're just starting to watch it through again, me and my girl, because we loved Game of Thrones. We thought that was the most big. It's got the whole massive stories, all these things. I mean, I knew about this show for like 5 years, while people were watching it and talking crap about it, and I never saw the show. And I just, whenever people, Game of Thrones, some people, I'm proud to say I've never watched an episode. Well, finally, we always do that thing where we'll buy a whole series and watch it. And at some point we said, hey, let's buy the first season of Game of Thrones, see if we like it. If we do, we'll get the rest. And so we did, and we loved it. And we watched the whole thing, and I'm like, oh, this is a great show. It's like, well, I think it's one of the greatest epic shows I've ever seen on television. So that's a fun show. And so we're just starting to rewatch it right now, just because it's COVID time. Yeah. Because we went through Sopranos. See, Sopranos, I was disappointed in Sopranos. I thought it was good. I loved it. I watched the whole thing, but I didn't think it really lived up to all the hype that everyone talked about. I think it's mafia thing, so you got to be cool. Really, I like Goodfellas. Now, Goodfellas I love as a movie, because I think that movie is just, I love I think it's funny. There's a lot of violence and it's brutal, but they're so funny. And then Snatch. Have you seen Snatch?
Yeah, the Brad Pitt. What's the name? Guy Ritchie?
Jason Statham. Yeah, Guy Ritchie directed it. That's, to me, people who don't know about that, they got to watch it. If you like Goodfellas or the mafia type, but it's British, It's also hilarious. It's a funny movie, but they're all after this giant diamond. There's different groups of people that you get to know.
Yeah,
that's a super great movie. I saw
And
3 times at the movie theater.
And what's up with Brad Pitt's accent in that movie?
Man, he's a pikey. They even have a special on the DVD. There's a special translator just for the pikeys. It's a pikey, subtitle, because it's so you cannot tell what they're saying. It's hilarious. But then when you read the subtitle, you go, yeah, they said that.
So the main stuff I've learned here about you, Brian Young, is you never stop working. There was no big break. The good taste goes beyond the music. You're continually learning and growing. You don't want to be on the road, but you want to play live.
But I'll do it. I'll do it if the right opportunity came up. I'd love to be on tour.
Okay. Don't go to you anymore to record the demos of the tracking, but you have the gear for it.
What was that? Don't go. No, actually, no, I want to do it. Oh, no, I forgot to tell you that part. I'm back into it now.
Oh, okay. We've come full circle.
Oh, that's my point, is that 6 months ago, when I started doing that Heartbreak Station and recording with those guys, I wanted, I had to relearn learn how to use this digital stuff. But no, I'm fully back into it now. I mean, I love doing it now that I'm home. So I've got a new love for recording and mixing, and it's going to take me a while to really get back up to speed. In fact, I've just got a new computer on the way because I outgrew my computer with my new Logic and all my plugins that I'm getting. I'm like, oh man, I got to upgrade. So no, I'm 100%. I'll record, send me stuff. I'm into it.
Okay, then my last.
I love when people send me full tracks, like the whole drum tracks and the bass, and then I just put it. I'm actually doing a Heaven and Hell with a drummer in Argentina, the one that we did the Van Halen thing with.
Yeah.
He just sent me a track. Joe Red is singing on it. He sounds amazing. And so I'm waiting for the bass track because I started recording over the drums and vocal, but I couldn't dial in the tone I wanted. So I asked them to get the bass guy to do his track so I can play with the drums and bass. And then I'm going to do a track. So I'm doing that. I got a bunch of stuff I'm working on with this guy out in Mr. Scary out in Missouri. And same thing. He's sent me so many tracks. I mean, it's like 40 track, it's got 40 tracks and I'm trying to mix it, but that's when my computer started crashing. So I have to, so I got this new computer, but it's not going to be here for 2 more weeks. So yeah, I stopped being that guy in 2007, but I've been sitting at home for a long time now. And so I have a new love for it. In fact, I was telling my girl the other day, I said, I enjoy this so much that if I couldn't play live anymore, I could do this and be happy. I mean, I really love doing the mixing and stuff. So I love it again.
Wow. Okay. And the closer, which is the easiest one, is if somebody does want to hire you or something to that effect, to play on their stuff, to mix their stuff, to demo the stuff, what's the best way to find you?
Just go to Facebook. That's where people hit me on Facebook all the time. Just my Facebook page.
Wow. Okay. Well, Brian, I can't thank you enough for your time and the many years of great music. So keep it up, and looking forward to more videos, even if it's not more Vandenberg. Looking forward to what's coming next.
Hey, the Black Sabbath is coming soon.
Thanks, man. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Paltrocast.